Are you feeling a little bit overwhelmed trying to pick a hotel in the Disneyland Resort area? In this video, we're going to try to help you narrow down your choices to pick the best hotel for your family. Who are we? We are Jim and Crystal, and we're Anaheim Park tourists. We've stayed in about half of the hotels in the Anaheim area.
Now, if you're a Disney World regular, odds are you will not have to take any transportation to the park. Crystal's going to go ahead and jump into some of the priorities to consider.
That's right. So the first thing you want to consider is proximity to the park. Do you not want to have to deal with the hassle of a shuttle or taking a ride share? Do you want to be able to walk to the park? That's the number one thing to consider. Next up would be if you're interested in an included breakfast. A lot of people really want that included breakfast at the hotel so they don't have to have the hassle of paying for it at the park. And usually if we pay for it at the park, we factor in about $12 to $15 per person, so it does add up very quickly. But one thing we did want to point out about the included breakfast, which has happened to us before, is now that we have teenagers, they're a little bit harder to get out of bed in the morning, and a lot of times we're barely making it to the park at opening, which is when we like to go. So having to get them up even earlier to make the included breakfast is a challenge. So always consider that too when you are booking, if you're actually going to have time to eat that included breakfast. The next thing to consider is a lot of the hotels in the Disneyland Resort area are actually motels. They're older motels, which means the corridors are outside, and a lot of times when you open your door to your room, you're looking right out at the parking lot. Some people absolutely do not want to stay in a motel, and other people don't really mind. So that is another thing to think about when choosing your hotel. Another thing that is really important to some people is taking a midday break. Now, if you are one of those people that want to take a midday break, a lot of times people want to stay closer to the park so it doesn't take up a huge chunk of your day taking a shuttle to get back to your hotel. Other people are rope drop to close people like we are, so we normally don't take a break. But sometimes we do like to be really close to the hotel, for instance in cooler weather, so on the evenings we can walk back and grab an extra jacket or change our shoes, that kind of thing. A lot of people really love taking a break in the day, having a pool day, or even a whole rest day where they just hang out at their hotel and swim. So sometimes having a really large high-end pool area is important to some people. If you have kids, it might be having water slides like the Cambria or the Courtyard Marriott theme park entrance, a pool that will keep your kids occupied and busy, playing and having fun. And last but not least is the room size. So like I mentioned before, a lot of the hotels in the area are older motels, and a lot of times these standard rooms are quite small. So if you are a family that travels with a grandma and they have an ECV, or you have little children with a stroller and you also need to put a pack and play or a crib in the room, those rooms can get really tight space-wise really fast. You might want to consider one of the larger hotels like Courtyard Marriott theme park entrance, because their rooms are quite spacious, lots of extra room for all of those extra necessities, and a lot of extra floor space where you won't feel so crammed into the room. For us, our family's priorities are being as close to the parks as possible. We prefer to walk if we can to the parks, and getting the biggest, nicest room that we can within our budget. A lot of times walking distance on Harbor Boulevard is not within our budget, and we have to go a little bit further out. So those are our priorities. So when you're choosing your hotel, keep your family's priorities at the top of your mind.
Some other things to consider: if you are looking at booking a suite near the harbor entrance, those rooms do book up really quick. So get those bookings in as soon as possible, especially if you're needing a bigger room type. Hotels and motels in the Disneyland Resort area do tend to be a little bit noisier than, you say, your standard business travel hotel. And that's because people are leaving in groups, large groups that is, and then so in the morning people will be leaving to go to the park. They're excited to get to the park. Kids are running up and down the hallway, and it's kind of the same for the return trip home at night. So when the fireworks gets out, it's a little bit noisy, and then later at night after the park's closed, it's going to be a little noisy. So if you are sound sensitive, do bring earplugs or a sound machine, and do note that it will be noisier than what your normal hotel stay would be like. When you are trip planning, do plan on being a little bit flexible with your dates, because Right next door to the Disneyland Resort is the Anaheim Convention Center. They're pretty much across the street from one another. And the Anaheim Convention Center does bring some very large conferences in, like WonderCon. In 2025, Pokemon is going to be there. And when these large conferences come to town or conventions, hotel prices go sky high. So always have some alternative dates in case hotel prices are absolutely insane.
So now we're going to go over the different areas surrounding the Disneyland Resort. And the first area we're going to talk about are the actual Disneyland Resort hotels. And we don't talk about those a whole lot on our channel because one, they're really expensive. And two, if we do stay there, we only stay there for one night typically because it's a big splurge and it's usually for a special occasion. So first up is the Disneyland Hotel, and it takes about 8 to 10 minutes to walk to the gates of Disneyland or California Adventure. Up next is Pixar Place Hotel. This takes about 15 minutes to walk to the gates of Disneyland, or about 5 minutes if you use the dedicated entrance to California Adventure for Pixar Place guests. It's right across the street from the hotel. One thing we wanted to point out about the Pixar Place Hotel is they unfortunately did not address the elevator issue at this hotel, and it's just as bad as it was previously. We have read reports on forums of people waiting 20 to 30 minutes for the elevator at peak times of the day. So if you are planning on booking here, do realize that at some point you're probably going to be having to wait for the elevator, which is unfortunate. Last but not least is the Grand Californian Hotel, which is pretty much like the flagship hotel at Disneyland. It is massive and it is technically located inside Disney California Adventure Park, so getting to that park is fairly easy. However, it could take 8 minutes or longer depending on where your room is located to walk to Disneyland. So a lot of people think it's right next to Disneyland too, but depending on where your room is at, it could be a lengthy walk to Disneyland Park.
Now that we talked about the Disneyland Resort hotels, we will talk about probably the most misleading area in Anaheim / Disneyland, and that's going to be the main gate area. It sounds like you're really close to Disneyland, and in reality, you're probably 1 mile or 1,600 meters away from the parks. And so it's going to take you 25, 30 minutes or so to walk to Disneyland. And this area is located north of the park on Ball Road. For the most part, these hotels are going to be on the cheaper side. So if you are looking for a good deal, this is a good place to look. In this area, the Anaheim Majestic does have a dedicated shuttle, but most likely you're going to be driving to the parks. You will be taking ART or Anaheim Regional Transportation, or you're going to take rideshare. Rideshare is going to cost $7 to $10 each way plus tip. The next area will be called the Harbor Entrance, and this is located on the east side of the Disneyland Resort. And this is our personal favorite area to stay in because it is the closest to Disneyland. Some of the motels in this area are closer than the Disneyland Resort hotels. Parkview and Best Western Park Place Inn mini suites are about a 5-minute walk. Now, most of the hotels, or should I say, most of them are motels in this area. There are a handful of hotels, and that will be the Howard Johnson, Courtyard Marriott Theme Park Entrance, Holiday Inn Express, and the 2 Hilton properties, Garden Inn and Home 2 Suites. This area tends to be the most expensive area because you are located so close to the parks. The next area is going to be Garden Walk, Catella, and the Convention Center. This is kind of a massive area that's a little further away from the Disneyland Resort, and it's mostly located south of Disneyland off of Catella. Here you're gonna find most of your chain hotels like the Hiltons, the Hyatts, and the Marriotts, and you're also gonna find a lot of budget-minded hotels. Most of these areas are at a mile walk, but you do have some different alternatives than walking, and one of them is you can walk over to the Toy Story parking lot, which has an entrance off Catella and Harbor, and you can take the Toy Story shuttle, which is free of charge, to the Disneyland transportation area. The downside to taking the Toy Story shuttle, it does get quite busy, especially when fireworks are over, and that's one of the peak times to leave the park, and the lines back up. It will be a lot quicker to actually walk to the Toy Story lot than wait for that shuttle. If you are staying closer to the convention center, it is about a 25-minute walk, and it's not bad in the morning, but every time we stayed there and we walk back at night, we regret it. So a good option is to take rideshare or ART. Rideshare in these areas will cost you $7 to $10 plus tip each way, and just do know that at peak times, it can take you a little bit of time to get a rideshare back to your hotel. Other areas to consider that are going to be outside of Anaheim are Garden Grove, Orange, and even Buena Park. And the biggest perk is the hotels tend to be a little bit cheaper over here because they are so far away. The hotel tax rate is considerably lower in these areas, and so your overall costs are going to be dramatically lower. For example, when we are on a budget, we like to stay in Orange because it is so much cheaper to stay there. We do encourage you when booking your hotel, double check the walking distance by using the Google Maps walking feature. Type in your hotel's address and then Disneyland Park as your destination.
Another piece of advice we wanted to point out was to always check the most recent reviews on TripAdvisor and Yelp for the hotels that you are considering staying at. And the reason being is even if you've stayed there in the past, management might have changed. It might have made the reviews not so great. It might have made the reviews even better than the last time you stayed there before. And another thing to look out for is trends in the reviews. So if you are seeing 5 to 7 or more recent reviews complaining about cleanliness, most likely there's a cleanliness issue. Same goes for customer service. If you're seeing 5 to 7 or more current reviews saying customer service is excellent or customer service is lacking, most likely those things are true. So always check those reviews. A trend we see a lot in all of the hotel reviews is housekeeping. And a lot of times, most hotels don't have daily housekeeping anymore. Ever since COVID, they no longer do daily housekeeping. Usually they'll advertise it on their website if they do daily housekeeping. Now, usually we don't have an issue if we need more towels or soap or anything like that. We can call and usually they'll bring it up to our room or we go down to the lobby and grab extras. This is not an Anaheim specific issue. We have seen this pop up in all of our travels around the US since COVID. And one more thing we wanted to talk about is we see a lot of people reach out in Disneyland forums or Disneyland Facebook groups asking for the best hotel to stay at, and they'll get a lot of recommendations. And the one thing we just wanted to say about that is it's fantastic to get recommendations from other people, but always keep your priorities for your family in mind when booking, because the person who's recommending this specific hotel to you might be rope drop to clothes people and they only sleep and shower in the room, but you might be a family that likes to go back midday and take a break and take a nap and go swimming. So you guys might not have the same priorities. So just always keep your priorities at the top of your mind when you're choosing your hotel. If you have any additional questions or you need more help narrowing down your choices for a hotel, please join our Facebook group. We'd be happy to help you, and a lot of our viewers are pretty active in there and will give their advice and suggestions as well. And as always, please comment down below if you need help and we'd be happy to help you as well.